Welcome in, everybody. This is Pro Football Enterprises. This is part two of a segment where we are picking all of our division winners, wild card winners, and then tonight we're marching everybody through the playoffs. So we're actually going to show you step by step what we're picking for that. Just a reminder for what we did a couple of weeks ago. These are the division winners that you see right here. So pretty much all of us picked the Eagles. Two of us picked the Lions. One of us, me, is actually picking the Packers now due to the Micah Parsons thing. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I have switched my North Division winner to the Packers. Austin elected to keep the Lions for now. Everybody picked the Packers. We were a little split on the West. Everybody picked the Chiefs. Everybody picked the Texans. Two of us picked the Bengals, and I got the Ravens, and then everybody picked the Bengals. So again, that's what we did 2 weeks ago, just to give you a kind of a glance at that. Now, here is our wild cards. I'll move the pictures over a little bit. I'm not going to walk everybody through it, but here's the NFC wild cards that everybody picked 2 weeks ago. Here's our AFC wild cards that everybody picked. The NFC was very much a mix, very much a struggle for us to try to sort through that, but we did. The AFC was a little bit more settled, but still some debates on that as well. All right, so what we're doing tonight is each of us did our own tournament. I'm going to go show you mine here in just a second. Let everybody see it. I won't talk much about mine because we'll talk about some of these teams when we get to Austin and Shane's turns. But then we'll have Austin and Shane march us through their tournament. All right, here we go. Here is my entire slot. I ended up with Packers and Bills in the Super Bowl and Bills winning the Super Bowl. I'll leave that up for everybody to see. Shane is actually going to go first, though. Shane, march us through your playoffs, and I apologize to the audience. I'll have to move back and forth a little bit to grab a couple of helmets as we do this. It's a little sloppy, but that's okay. Shane, start talking us through the NFC first, who your seeds are, and then we'll get into the matchups, okay?
So for the seeds, it basically lies very similar to what yours is set up, Ben. So there's not much of a need for change on that. I picked the Packers starting out before the Michael Parsons run, so I didn't change them in this run. I had the same setup you have for this. So Packers is the one, Philly gets the number two seed, and Tampa Bay with the three. And I thought that St. Louis would have that four as well, but I also have the Lions going on just like you do in your bracket.
So let's pause right there because not everybody's going to have the same. In fact, we all struggled with the wild card section of it. But ultimately, was this hard for you, or was this fairly easy on these kind of the leaders of the NFC?
I think the leaders were fairly easy for myself at least. I thought it was harder to decide how some of those wild card ones were going to play out because I think especially if you're looking in that Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota run. There's a chance pre Micah Parsons where any of those teams could have ended up in the same record. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that and then who would be your wild card out of that. I think that that's the one that opens up the biggest debate in my mind. You look at Tampa, I think that they have an easier run through there. Philly, I think, is by far the class in the East. Obviously, Dallas is weak in themselves. The Giants through the preseason didn't look overly prepared, so I thought that that was pretty easy out of the NFC side.
I struggled to decide who would be in the wild card and who would get left out. I thought those teams were all very close. And then out of say these four or five leaders on the NFC side, I think they're all very close. So I really struggled with who wins the North, the Lions or the Packers, even with Micah Parsons. And I just kind of flipped it, but I still think it's really tight. I think the Eagles are really good, but boy, doing it 2 years in a row, and with some of the questions I do have about them, I think they're beatable. And then the Buccaneers on the upswing to me. So, I thought it was really tight, those two different groups, and we'll talk more about it in a second. Shane, give me your wild cards. That'll reveal the matchups, and then we'll start marching through the NFC.
Well, so like you said, I mean, I stuck pretty tight on my wild cards for what I had. I had San Francisco, I had Chicago, and I had Detroit. So I think San Francisco, like I said, they're going to be a good wild card. I don't see them going any farther. Detroit was the one team I thought that had an opportunity to play up in this one. So obviously, where you have the 4 or 5 of the Rams and Detroit, I had the 4 or 5 of San Francisco and Detroit in that run. And uh, again, like I said, I think that they're kind of be sacrificial lambs, the wild cards in this. I think the power teams in the NFC stay power and have a pretty easy run this year.
All right. And so for you, who's your worst wild card out of the 49ers, Bears, and Lions?
My worst one was I said that the Bears were going to be the lowest.
Bears are the lowest. Give me 1 second. I'll put that in. So they'll be facing the Eagles. I would assume they'll lose, but maybe you got a surprise in store. And then the 49ers would line up as the 5 or as the 6?
They were the 5.
49ers are the 5 with Detroit as the 6, correct?
Yep.
All right. So that shows Shane's matchups. Shane, just go ahead and walk us through it all the way till you get a Super Bowl participant here. Tell us the winners of these matchups.
So like you said, so you look at Philadelphia, I have them my NFC winner for the Super Bowl. I think, like you said, Ben, there's some weaknesses there, but I also don't see a power team out of the NFC. You know, you mentioned Tampa Bay up and coming. Can they keep on their ride? Other than Green Bay, and that's if Micah Parsons is full power and
Right.
he propels the defense even more than what he had done for Dallas. Because let's not forget, Dallas had a quarterback and him as a defense, and they still managed to not win year after year. So
Right.
I don't think that as much as a lot of people are hyping this as an automatic for Green Bay, I don't think that puts them in that real stratosphere. I think Philadelphia is easily the best team in the NFC. And then, as you said, on those lower matchups, I pretty much went chalk across the board. So you end up having a Green Bay matchup as well, where they'll face Philadelphia, and I pick Philadelphia in that one.
All right. I'm gonna finish typing this in a second. Austin, you've seen both mine and Shane's NFC matchups and results here. Any major surprises here out of me and Shane together?
No, I mean, I wasn't as high on Green Bay. I don't know if I've completely done all the calculus in my head about how potentially good this team could be with Micah Parsons if he's fully healthy, which we still don't know. We think he is, but we still don't know. Um, I am pretty in line with you guys in the hype for Tampa Bay, and we'll see that when we get to my list. I don't necessarily think there's anything that I would uh like balk at completely.
And I got to repeat, man, the Green Bay pick for me is risky business, and I know it. Like, because I out of all the Jordan Love people out there, I'm probably the lowest on Jordan Love. But when I look at the team and the coaching staff, I like them, and you add Micah Parsons, so I just nosed them ahead. I was kind of looking for somebody to give Philadelphia some trouble here, and I think Tampa Bay on some nights could do that. Other nights they might get run out of the building, you know. So we'll see. I'm sure one or two of these power teams that we're looking at won't even be in the playoffs by the end of the season, and one of them will be almost unbeatable, right? But picking which one, the Eagles, there's no reason not to pick the Eagles, but I went ahead and did the risky stuff here with the Packers. All right, Shane, give us the AFC side, man.
So on my AFC side, I so Ben and I don't normally agree this tightly, but I think the Bills are going to come out of this as well. Um, like you said, for the three of us, we were all pretty similar, with just some really depending on how you think the Bengals are going to turn out this year.
Right.
So if you're on the Joe Burrow side, that's your run. Um, I have Kansas City, have the Bills. We talked before about where Denver could really pull up. Um, I'm on record as being a Harbaugh guy, so both Ravens and Chargers are a chance out of this. Um, really, in all honesty, Ben, other than the height that you have the Ravens, my playoff bracket is exactly the same as yours going through. So
All right. So what I'm gonna do here, give me your 2 seed because that's you actually picked the Bengals to win that division. So who's your
yeah,
2 seed in the AFC?
so that was mine off of that. I have Bills are the number one. I have that Kansas City would be the number two,
Okay.
and then the Bengals are the 3 seed out of that, and then my lowest seed went out to the West.
And I'm sure you're giving the Ravens the 5 seed, the highest
I am.
wild card,
Yep.
right? Yeah. So, all right, give me just a second here and type this up for the audience to look at as well. So, Chargers, what seed do you have them? They are I guess the 6 or the 7, right?
Yep. They're the sixth.
They're the 6. Bengals as the 3. And what does that leave? Who's your 4 seed?
Texans were the other one.
Texans are the other one because we all picked them to win that division. And then what team am I missing here at the 7 seed, Shane?
Let me see. I had Bengals, Chargers,
I guess the Broncos, right?
Broncos. Yep.
All right, very cool. So there's the matchups, and we know you've already picked the Bills to run on through it. Are you chalk from here, or do you have a first round upset that you maybe like out of that group?
I was pretty chalk. I think the real play for me is if the Bengals don't end up as I selected them to win, I think they become dangerous the farther down they slide. Um, if the defense really pulls together with Al Golden, there's just a ton of offensive weapons, and you don't want to get in a playoff matchup with them where they're the low seed and then they drop 40 on you in a first round game where you're just, you think like, hey, we got home field, and Joe Burrow decides he wants to put it on. Jamar Chase ends up with 200 yards receiving, and you don't know what hit you. I think they're the dangerous ones. I think my other worry, just if we're talking chalk, is I think Kansas City this year has the opportunity to turn bad quicker than they have in years past. Again, you put another year on everybody. They've tried to figure out the offensive line. Don't know how much longer you can go before you really have solidified answers there. I think the defense is probably not going to be up to the level they were last year, and that's really just because it's going to be difficult to play up to that. Last year, more than the years before, they had to bail the offense out. And I think that takes a toll on your defense more than it does your offense after coming back from a Super Bowl loss like that. But the two that I thought were dangerous, that's the Bengals and the Broncos. Because the Broncos, again, are another team. It'd be 14-7 they win, 21-7 they win, and then all of a sudden has a crazy game. Bo Nix throws for 300 yards and you get blown out. So those are the danger ones for me. I think the Chargers are another one that make the playoffs, but they're going to bow out. It's the team's not ready yet. They're getting better, but they're not at the level of those top 3 teams, I would say, in the AFC right now.
Shane, give me your Super Bowl pick here, and then we'll get Austin's quick reaction to our AFC results. You've got Bills versus Eagles.
So I'm gonna, thank the great state of New York and give the Bills a victory after their years of defeat. I think this is it's a homer pick, but B, I also think like the Bills, if it's not this year, I don't see when it's happening. They put the effort in. They brought some other people to try to play defense for them. I think they've gotten to a point where they understand what they need to do. They just didn't have the horses the last couple of years. So if they can pin it together, I also think that the AFC this year is down compared to years past. So it might be the easier mark for them this year.
I'm in the same boat. I do think Kansas City is vulnerable. I think they're capable of winning a Super Bowl, but when I look at that offensive line, I think it's choking down what that engine could really run on. I don't think
Hmm.
Mahomes needs great receivers. I do think he needs good tackles to give him time to throw downfield and to really open up that full offense, full throttle. They can always score points. They'll figure out a way to move the ball
Hmm.
and collect some points. But, you're talking about winning Super Bowls and without at least one good tackle to cover up one side of the field, and then you can help the other side if you need to, that offense has me worried. And I'm with you on the defense because I did think it's going to be very good, but for them to be at that pristine level they were last year, where like every button they pushed was perfect,
Hmm.
I don't know that that's hard to do 2 years in a row. We've had several people tell us and talk about that. It's hard for those defenses to be that good in back-to-back years. So still very good, I think, but maybe not quite as hot as it was running last year. Austin, before we get to your tournament, your picks, any reaction here to our AFC side of things?
Um, yeah, I think I would. We'll see. I don't want to spoil mine too much. I am a little
Right.
bit surprised, I think, by the Bills pick. I don't know. They're a team that has struggled, as you mentioned, has struggled to get it done in the past, and
Yes.
I personally don't see why this year is suddenly the year for them. I don't see it necessarily uh like you guys do, but I don't want to spoil too much of mine. I
Right.
think also neither of you having the Chiefs even make it to the AFC Championship is shocking. I know a lot of people are down on the Chiefs, but I mean the Chiefs in the playoffs are formidable. And I don't know if Mahomes has ever not made it to the AFC Championship. So yeah, I don't I did not foresee that coming either.
Betting against Mahomes is also risky business. So me and
Yes.
Shane are both standing on cracked ice for sure. All right, Austin, you've had to wait until last, so we'll give you plenty of time here. Here's your bracket, and you start walking us through. Start with your NFC seeds first.
Okay, yeah. So I wrote this down in the order you have it to make it a little easier on both of us here, hopefully. Um, my one seed in the NFC is Philly. I think they're the class of the NFC still, reigning Super Bowl champions, and I think the team is still very similar
Yeah.
to last year, even though it's not all the same. I think where it's most important, it is the same. My two seed, I have Detroit. I know y'all both, like the Packers, but I still think Detroit is going to be fantastic this year. Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last year and was the only good pass rusher they have, so I think they've improved that area as well as getting back their best player. I think that's going to make a huge difference for them. My three seed is Tampa Bay. Similar to you guys, I think Tampa Bay is going to be a really good team this year. And my four seed is San Francisco. I don't necessarily love the team or the roster. I just think they have the easiest schedule I may have ever seen, and it will get them to the playoffs and win that division with it. My five seed, my top wild card seed's Green Bay. My second wild card seed is the Rams, which are now in Los Angeles, Shane. I wanted to remind you. You did say St. Louis. That was a few years ago, but and then number seven is Minnesota. I do think the NFC North sends three teams to the playoffs this year.
No, I see. I love Austin, and it's a little different than ours, but some the same. I still think Detroit's very good this year, and I think they have a legit Super Bowl shot. I mean,
Mhm.
it's kind of the NFL is one of the few sports that actually does this, where you finish second in your division and you're dumped back in the lead wild card spot. You don't get number two playoff spot, right? You get sent back. So Detroit can be very dangerous. And then the Minnesota pick I like too, even though I didn't do it. Minnesota has everything except for the quarterback, and they might have that
They
too. We just
might,
don't
we
know
don't
yet,
know.
you know? So there's nothing wrong with putting Minnesota right in here in the midst of everybody. So all right, so here's the matchups. Go ahead and walk us through these early matchups here.
Yeah, I think this divisional matchup at the top with the two seed and the seven seed is going to be the best game of these. I think this is going to be electric, but I do think the rookie, not necessarily rookie, first time starter, second year player, but is I think that's going to be a struggle for Minnesota with JJ McCarthy. I do think the Lions triumph there. The Buccaneers versus the Rams, I think, is also going to be a very good game. You've got an elite coach in McVay. You've got a proven quarterback in Stafford if his back is healthy. But I'm rolling with Tampa Bay. I think this is a really, really good football team. I think this defense is going to be have to take a really big step up. I think the Tampa Bay defensive unit is going to have one of the greatest sort of step ups in this year's NFL. That's what I'm predicting. And then, like I said, with the 49ers, they are not, a playoff run team this year. I just don't see it happening. Even when Ayuk comes back, if he is somehow back to full strength, which by the playoffs he might be, but I don't see it happening. So I'm going Green Bay there.
Quick shout out to Tampa Bay because I had them in the NFC title game. We're all pretty high on them. I just think they're really well built. I mean, all around.
Mhm.
They're not perfect, but finding a weakness is hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. And finding a place that they can't compete at is also hard. So, I really like their chances, even though I didn't, I'm not Super Bowl high on them. I do like their chances here. Very, very dangerous team. So you've got Buccaneers, Lions, and then Packers, Eagles.
hmm Yeah, so moving on from here, I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of say, thanks for the nice run, Tampa Bay, but the Lions are the better team here, uh, pretty much top to bottom. I think they actually are very similarly built, uh,
Yeah.
vaguely, not like exactly the same, but it seems like they have similar styles and composition, maybe is the right word. But the Lions are just that tick above and have been for the last 2 years now, and I think we'll continue that. Green Bay, this is where I have to start really digging down. How much is that Micah Parsons going to impact in the playoffs? Because he could tear it up, but that Eagles offensive line is also fantastic, and I think I'm going to move the Eagles on again, and we're going to have an Eagles Lions NFC Championship.
That Lions Eagles matchup, to me, that's a heavyweight matchup. I
Mhm.
didn't even pick it, but I mean, to me, those are the two teams that for the past couple of seasons have been battling it back and forth. And, other teams have been in the mix, but those are the two that have been consistently there 2 years running now. So for them to get kind of not really a rubber match, but the idea of a rubber match to see who gets to go to the Super Bowl would be a lot of fun. Who you got coming out of that one?
Well, I tell you what, I have the Lions moving on. I think the Lions could be the Eagles' kryptonite. The way that I think, who was their first round draft pick? Tyleik Williams, I think it was,
Yeah, yeah,
who I was a really big fan of Ohio State. Fantastic run stopper. I think
yes.
he's going to make a big difference on this interior of this defensive line, helping them stop the run. And I think they have enough firepower on the outside, especially with their I believe, third round pick Isaac Tesla, who has been really stepping up in camp. I think he, as their fourth weapon, is going to make some key plays when you're trying to watch Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Jamison Williams is running by you in a blur. You're going to lose Isaac Tesla a few times, and I think that he's going to make some big plays in the playoffs, whether it's against Philly or whoever it is against. I think he will do that. So I'm a believer in the Lions, I think.
I love the Lions pick, and I was really close. What it came down to me for in the NFC side, in my head, I was like, I'm not going to pick the Eagles to do it twice in a row. Not that they can't. I just statistically that's difficult, so I'm not going to pick it. I'm going to pick somebody else. It came down to the winner of the North. So it was going to be the Lions for me. Then when the Packers added Micah Parsons, I just flipped it. But the Lions, you mentioned that you bring in Tyleik Williams to shut down the run in the middle, hopefully. You get Aiden Hutchinson back. If he's at full strength by midseason, he may dominate and tear it up. But that secondary, you got some young guys back there who are killing it in the secondary. So I really, really like that too. And we haven't even talked about the offense, which is pretty good.
Right.
So in case anybody
I,
hadn't
I'm not
noticed.
as worried about the losing of the coordinators as a lot of people are. And I understand that a lot of people do think that, Ben Johnson was the key to this offense and Glenn on the defense. And while I acknowledge their impact, I don't think it is going to be as costly as a lot of other people. I think Dan Campbell, stirring the drink is still the most important thing on the sidelines. And Jared Goff at this point in his career can absolutely, I think, lead pretty much any offense he wants. He's not, Mahomes or Allen, but I think he can be an on-field coach as about as well as anybody in the league.
Yeah, because I'm one of the people who have consistently said Ben Johnson missing from the offense will hurt it some, but
Mm.
still there's so much talent there. The offensive line is tremendous. You've got not one but two running backs. You've got a quarterback who's experienced and been to a lot of playoff games now. You've got, I mean, you're just loaded on offense here, so they're gonna still be good. They may just do it a different way slightly, but they may not do it a different way. They may keep doing it the same way. So it's just such a well-built offense. Maybe in the first few weeks they find their way a little bit. They're still going to score plenty of points to win these games. It's going to come down to playoff time. Are they humming? And they may well be. So Shane, quick reaction. I don't want to leave you out for too long here. To Austin's NFC side.
No, I think Austin made some great points. And I'm kind of on the same spot where both of you are. I think the offense is going to be a lot more set it and forget it. And I think Ben Johnson, I think he'll do great for Chicago, but I think this offense stays very similar without him there. Defensively, without Aaron Glenn, I think though there's a bigger chance in my mind for that defense to regress. I agree, however, like Austin said, you get back to the player that you missed the most defensively. Seems by all stretch of the imagination that he's healthy. I think they have the players to pull that. I'll be interested to see what Calvin Shepard can do. Their linebackers got better last year. That's the group that he was in charge of. They were a weakness before. They played better the past year. So I think they have all the makings to be that level, just like Austin picked them. I also couldn't agree more. I think the Isaac Tesla, this is a guy that, pulled himself up, got to Arkansas, a mismanaged offense there because it's wonders what he could have done because when you watch him run against the guys in the NFL, I don't see a ton of guys that got drafted that don't match up at equally or a little bit less than what he could do. Big body, goes after the ball, and from everything that everybody in Detroit says, fits right into that offense. And he could be the missing piece where, just like Austin said, you got a burner, you got Ahmed St. Ra that does everything that you could ask of a wide receiver. You have Sam Laporta, one of the premier tight ends now in the league. If you have another big body that you can go and put that ball into, especially if you've got to cover him and Laporta in the red zone, I think it opens things up for them. And they still have two great tailbacks. So, I mean, the real thing is my biggest worry for Detroit, that's the Frank Ragnow. So if center becomes an issue for them, that's the only thing I worry about. So, like Austin said, I went a little bit high on some of mine, but I agree with everything that he picked as well.
Between the three of us, and I know the audience may or may not be keeping up in detail, but I was just looking back. Between the three of us, the Lions, the Buccaneers, the Packers, and the Eagles all got the most votes to be those top four teams on the NFC side. It was just, hey, who's coming out of that four? The Rams picked up a couple of aftervotes there, probably as the fifth team. But it's those fours if you're looking at our three tournaments, it's those four teams that should be fighting out for this top NFC spot here. Tampa Bay didn't advance in any of our, past the championship game, but the other three teams, we all like them, and we like Tampa Bay too. We just didn't put them in the Super Bowl. All right, Austin, you've got the Lions in the Super Bowl. Let's work through the AFC side and tell us who's going to play them there.
Well, the Chiefs are the number one seed still. Uh, no explanation necessary, I don't
Right.
think, for that. Number two is Buffalo. Again, no explanation necessary there. Three, there is an explanation necessary, and that's because I have the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think this could be the Bengals' year. I've really liked all their moves. I am not a Zach Taylor guy. We've known this.
Yeah.
This is not new information. Uh, and we'll see my thoughts on him as we move down the playoff chart. But I think in terms of regular season, when a big offense can win you plenty of weeks, that's going to happen a lot. I really like Chase Brown as your new lead running back. I thought he did great
Yeah.
when he took over the role later last year. I think full year he will be awesome, and I think this is going to be a really good football team again. Number four, last spot of a division winner is going to be the Houston Texans in the four seed.
I do want to ask y'all before we get any farther, Austin. Um, the Houston Texans. I don't think any of the three of us are putting them in the Super Bowl, but how capable do y'all think? Do they even have that ceiling this year? Austin, you first.
No, I don't think their offensive line is going to be capable of matching up against these elite teams. I think they're going to beat up on teams. They're going to be that classic, uh, just above average team who beats up on all the below average teams, and gets stomped by the better teams. I just don't really think. I think they're going to play exactly as expected. I don't see any big fireworks coming out of them.
Jane, same feeling.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's the offensive line is my big worry for that. I think they've corrected some of the problems. They'll have some weapons back. Um, Love the coaching staff with that group, and I think that's going to help them. But yeah, I think when it comes to firepower, especially with give the example that Austin picked. If you're talking about the Bengals have proved even with no defense they can score 40 plus a game. So if you add a defense in there, what happens? I think that becomes much harder if you're the Texans to go in reverse, where last year you underperformed offensively, and it's harder I think to get that type of streak going than it is for you to make leaps and bounds defensively year to year in the NFL.
I'm exactly where both of you guys are. I love this Texans defense. I think it's got a chance to be a beast this year, and I love the coaching staff. And I really like CJ Stroud. I haven't backed off of him. I coming into year three, and I like their collection of receivers. I think by the mid-season they're going to have that receiver thing figured out as far as who gets the most playing time. But I came back to the offensive line, and it was like, ugh, this is not good. You're not going to beat Buffalo or Cincinnati or Kansas City or Baltimore with that offensive line in the playoffs. You're not going to make it through that gauntlet. So I had no problem winning the division with them. I have big problems getting them through the playoffs. Is exactly where I came out at. Austin, let's walk through your wild cards and matchups.
Wild cards are Baltimore, the Chargers, and the Patriots. Looking at the matchups that this lays out, again, we see uh, some divisional rivalry potential in the playoffs, which I always love. But we got to hope there's a win early. Or no, in this case, there is off the bat because I have. No. I think you put the Ravens in at the six. That should be the
Ah,
Chargers.
you're right. I even
Yeah,
meant to
there we go.
grab them. I don't know what I did there. Sorry. All right, now we got it fixed.
Yeah, so yeah, we see some divisional rivalries here at the 2 and 7 again. And this time it's over in the East, the AFC East, with the Bills and the Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to be a really good football team late in the year. I think their defense is going to be good. They shored up the offensive front and the defensive front in the offseason. I think they have some new weapons. And I think Drake May is going to improve a lot. I just don't think it's going to be enough to beat the Bills, unfortunately. I think a lot of teams that if the Patriots are matched up against, I would feel comfortable giving the win, just not necessarily Buffalo. The Chargers Bengals matchup. Give me LA. This is where I think the defense matters when you get to the playoffs, and this is where I think head coach matters when you get to the playoffs. And the Chargers just outclass the Bengals by a mile on both of those fronts, as well as you're going to be relying on some young talent at receiver, as well as the old new guy and Keenan Allen who's back on the Chargers. But Trey Harris, the rookie receiver, I think is going to be able to be, 17 games into his NFL career by this point. I think he will feel comfortable as the number two in this offense, and that Chargers team could really get rolling, especially if Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton are both healthy in the backfield. That's dangerous. I think this Chargers team's gonna be really good. And then between the Texans and the Ravens, I got it. This is a no contest. I think the Ravens absolutely mop the floor with the Texans, and I wouldn't even watch this game. I don't think it'd be worth the time.
I was fully prepared to put the Chargers as division winners over the Chiefs and doing some real playoff damage before the Rashawn Slater thing. It's not necessarily just because of that, but I thought, well, their roster isn't fully formed out yet the true Harbaugh way. They're still kind of in step two. So when you took out Slater, I was like, well, I'm gonna pull them on back down. Hey, listen, by the end of the year, they get things figured out. Everybody's in their new roles. They may be clicking. So Bills and Chargers, Ravens and Chiefs, what you got?
Well, let's start down with the Ravens and Chiefs because this is the big one to me. Uh, I think, spoiler alert, whoever wins this matchup is going to the Super Bowl. I think these are the two best teams in the playoffs at this point. That out of all of the eight teams that are left in this round, I think these are the top two dogs, if I'm being honest with you. And I'm going Ravens. I think this might be the Ravens' year. And I know I didn't have them winning the division over there in the AFC North, but I think that is because they are going to be relying on two key defensive rookies. You've got first round draft pick and Malachi Starks, who I was absolutely in love with, and Mike Green, who I like a lot, but worried about some off field stuff and size concerns and things like that. But I think Malachi and Green are going to be well acclimated. Like I said, when you get to the playoffs, those rookies who have been, cutting their teeth in the regular season are going to be sharp and ready to go. And I think this is one of those situations where I think this defense, also the Chiefs defense is awesome, but I think this Ravens defense could be mean. If Derrick Henry's healthy, and I really like their passing weapons now. I think Mark Andrews kind of showed himself at the end of the year that he got healthy again. I think Isaiah Likely, who's hurt a little bit early, is going to be healthy. So you have two elite tight ends, Zay Flowers, who I love. And I think Rashad Bateman's going to have a breakout year, which he kind of did last year a little bit under the radar, but I think he really shows himself this year as a great number two. So I'm big on the Ravens. I think it just takes them a while to get ramped up, but I think you know,
Right.
they're going to be going. And maybe this is just like some fanfic I'm writing, but I've got a Harbaugh brothers matchup here. I've got the Chargers moving on, man. I don't know what it is. Something just in my guts telling me it's a very similar situation to like the Ravens, where I think they're going to be a ramp up team. I love Justin Herbert. I love Coach Harbaugh. I think for the Bills, I am just worried about them. They don't seem to ever get it done in the playoffs.
Right.
I don't believe in their offensive weapons that much, and I think the Chargers are going to be able to rein the Bills in and take a slight win over them. And then, like I said, whoever's winning that Chiefs Ravens game is going on, so Ravens move on. And I think it's the Ravens' year. I got them winning it all.
I'm gonna get last thoughts from each of you here in a second, but I gotta say, Austin, you have Ravens, Lions. Um, Shane had Bills, Eagles. I had Bills, Packers. I would not feel cheated with any of those matchups. I really don't like it when the Super Bowl has a seven seed show up that I really don't even think can hang in there. Not all seven seeds are created equal. Some of them can win a Super Bowl, but when you got one that just kind of got lucky and, played an injured team in the NFC title game or something, I feel cheated. I would not feel cheated if these teams showed up in the Super Bowl. These are some of the heavyweights, the leaders. For me on the NFC side, I had four teams I was struggling between getting to the Super Bowl. On the AFC side, I'm down to two. It's Bills Ravens because I'm just not quite there on the Chiefs this year. So that's where I was at when it came down to picking who would show up in the Super Bowl. So I'm about six or seven teams deep on the entire league. Excuse me. All right, Shane, final thoughts here on all of this. And I'm sorry, Shane, it was on mute. I appreciate you doing it earlier, but we want to hear you
If
now.
Austin's philosophy continues, I mean, I'd be happy with a Harbaugh matchup.
Yeah.
And I agree with him more on the Ravens. I'm a big Chargers fan, but I think the Ravens have a lot of components. Um, and the big worry for me always with the Ravens is eventually, at some point during the year, they forget that they have a great tailback and they wane away from that, and it starts to become troublesome. But I think we've all decided this year that the AFC is down from what it's been, and I don't think that the Chiefs are as high up. So if you're going to have a run, this is the year to get them. Uh, and I don't even disagree with Austin that I picked the Bills for this, but I think a lot of things got to go right for them. And with Buffalo, it's once things go bad, it's not hard for them to cash out once the playoffs start.
Yeah, whether it's the Ravens or the Bills, because we all picked somebody to knock the Chiefs off this year. One of them's got to step up for the first time ever, and they've got the talent. It's just nope, neither one of them has done it yet. So we'll see. I really don't. I ain't got nothing against the Chiefs, but I really don't need Kansas City in the Super Bowl again. I want somebody else coming out of the AFC side this year just to mix it up. Austin, final thoughts on everything that I.
Yeah, like you said, Ben, I think if you told me that we'd be getting one of these matchups for the Super Bowl, I would be happy. I don't really think there's a way to be let down by any of these matchups. I think this is going to be, I feel like every year has sort of a storyline. I think this is going to be uh, a year where we see some rookies. As I mentioned, I really liked this draft class. You have probably heard me talk a lot about them if you've been, tuning in a lot of the Box Score Network stuff, but I think this is going to be a really good draft class, and I think we're going to see a lot of impact rookies at non-impactful, traditionally impactful positions.
All right, everybody. This has been Pro Football Enterprises. I'm Ben Parker. That's Austin Freed. That's Shane Ratliff. We really appreciate y'all watching. Hope you enjoyed the NFL season. We are just right here knocking on the door. So enjoy it. Have a great one. Bye.